Mysterious reasons behind God's destruction of nations in the Old Testament revealed. Few knew what truly happened that night in Jericho. The air was thick with tension, whispers of fear and anxiety weaving through the crowd like a tangled web. People huddled together, their faces pale, eyes wide with dread. What lay ahead was a mysterious impending doom that clung to the very stones of the city. Joshua, the leader of Israel, stood firm at the edge of the encampment, his heart pounding like a drum. The walled city loomed before him, its structure like a great beast ready to swallow its prey. Walls high and unyielding had stood for centuries, but a divine command echoed in his mind: march around the city. It felt surreal, even absurd. What could a march do against such fortifications? Historically, Jericho was a symbol of strength. For centuries, it had defied invaders. Yet here, in a moment fraught with the supernatural, everything was about to change. Days passed, and each morning they circled the city, the sound of their footsteps resonating like the heartbeat of a giant. Stones crumbled under the weight of the divine declaration. Murmurs erupted in Jericho, citizens scratching their heads in confusion, disbelief etched across their faces. How could these followers of Yahweh hope to conquer them? Tension spiraled, each round tightening the noose of dread. Some laughed at Joshua's madness, while others whispered of ancient prophecies. The contradictions were stark. A city, proud and fortified, faced off against the very will of God. It was a laughter tinged with fear, a mockery that echoed through the gates, but deep down, uncertainty gnawed at their spirits. Then came the seventh day. A stillness fell, thick as fog. The sun climbed high, casting an eerie glow over the battleground. The people of Israel gathered in anticipation, their hearts racing. Joshua raised his hand, signaling the trumpets. With a sound that shattered the stillness, the walls began to tremble. Cries of shock erupted from the citizens of Jericho. They watched in horror as the walls shook like leaves in a storm, then imploded in on themselves, like a mighty giant crumbling to the ground. What had they unleashed? Was it the power of faith, or something far darker? The air crackled with energy, shock waves coursing through the ground. There were not only screams of fear but cries of desperation, the sound piercing through the remnants of their once mighty fortress. As the dust settled, Joshua and his people stood ready, hearts filled with triumph and terror. Victory in the face of divine intervention felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As they stormed the gates, they left destruction in their wake, but victory felt tainted with questions. What did it mean for them, and for the world beyond? The silence that followed after the chaos was deafening. What other nations lay ahead? What other mysteries awaited? The truth behind God's wrath remained hidden, leaving them to wonder. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the aftermath of the collapse, a profound silence wrapped around the city of Jericho, broken only by the echoes of victory and grief mingling in the air. Joshua, amidst the debris and the fading cries of the fallen, felt a weight upon his shoulders, a burden he could not yet name. As he surveyed the ruins, visions of what had been once vibrant and alive now lay in shambles, his heart wrought with uncertainty. The Israelites poured through the shattered gates, swords drawn but hearts hesitant, their triumph marred by the specter of destruction. Each step taken felt heavy, echoing the life that had been extinguished within the walls. Questions swirled among them like dust in the troubled air. Had they been mere instruments of divine will, or had they unknowingly drawn forth wrath? In the midst of the tumult, Rahab emerged from the shadows, her home spared according to the promise she received. The red cord that hung from her window fluttered like a beacon amidst the desolation. She stepped forward, her demeanor strong despite the chaos around her. Joshua, she called, her voice a clear note cutting through the disarray. What of those whose lives we have taken? Do we not reckon with the blood that stains our hands? Her inquiry hung in the air between them, a question of deep significance overshadowing the recent victory. The walls of Jericho lay echoingly silent, yet the reverberations of her question lingered. What righteousness lay in their triumph if it danced upon the graves of the vanquished? Joshua turned, the horror of what had transpired settling ever deeper within him. We acted as commanded, he whispered at first, almost to himself. Yet, was it merely about conquering? What of mercy? As they advanced further into the city, remnants of Jericho's life spilled out shredded laughter, echoes of families, lives entwined. The ghostly whispers of those who had built, loved, and lost filled the air, trailing behind them with every step. In the shadows, figures stirred, eyes wide with fear. Stripped of their resolve, those who remained in Jericho had witnessed the might of a God who defended his people. Yet, it was they who now faced the uncertainty of survival amidst the ruins of their homeland. Once hardened soldiers began to murmur, their excitement flickering like the embers of a fading fire. They gathered together, questioning the morality of their conquest. How does this align with our understanding of a loving God? One man asked, grasping the arm of a companion. Is it just for our victories to come at such a price? Amidst this uncertain tide, overlapping stories lay waiting to intertwine, waiting for the indelible marks of fate to be drawn further. Deborah, a prophetess of Israel, had watched from afar. She had witnessed the contour of this land shifting and prayed for the hearts of her people. Now, she stepped forward into the fray, sensing the gravity of Joshua's hesitation. This moment is not merely a conquest, she declared, her voice rising above the whispers. It is a reckoning. Each choice we make walks the delicate line between justice and retribution. As the Israelites paused to consider her words, another presence emerged from the shadows. An elder of Jericho. Slumped yet resolute, he approached slowly. We sought the gods of our fathers for favor, he murmured, his voice heavy with sorrow. Yet we did not know that your God waited, ever patient, ever watchful. What lessons lie beneath the rubble of our pride? His unyielding grief extended as an offering for understanding, challenging them to seek wisdom amidst anguish. What truths could be gleaned when nations collide between faith and despair, between mercy and judgment? The dynamics of divine command began unveiling like a scroll unrolling, layers revealing myriad questions yet unanswered. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting shadows long and deep, Joshua looked to the faces around him. He pondered their purpose in this unfolding narrative, how their journey would be remembered, and what course of action lay ahead. The battles fought were not just against flesh and blood, but against principles, philosophies, and the very essence of what it meant to remain faithful in a world rife with despair. With tightened grips on their swords and hesitations heavy in their hearts, the Israelites prepared to move deeper into Jericho, a city starkly representing the fragility of human pride and the invincible might of divine will. What lay beyond this day for them? What would the weight of their choices reveal about both the heart of God and the heart of man? The dusk settled upon Jericho, a blanket of uncertainty mingling with the chill of prophecy. Joshua stood at the threshold of what had once been a thriving marketplace, its cobbled stones now slick with remnants of conflict. The cries of the fallen danced on the winter breeze, mingling with the mournful songs of the survivors, those who had yet to emerge from the shadows of shattered homes and lost hopes. Joshua, Rahab spoke again, her voice quieter this time but firm. What do we tell the children? What do we say to those whose eyes still shine with innocence? Her gaze swept over the gathering trust, a small contingent of those who had hidden behind her walls, uncertain yet hopeful. How do we teach them about such a God who demands sacrifice? Joshua turned toward her, his brow furrowed. The weight of countless hearts, the living and the dead, rested heavily upon him. His mind echoed with questions. Would the stories of today become cautionary tales for future generations? Would they walk the path of mercy and understanding, or become emboldened by the echoes of destruction? The children must learn of both the mercy and the fury, Deborah interjected, stepping closer to Joshua. For we stand on a pivotal moment of choice. Our actions here are woven into the fabric of history, and they shall dictate the course of our future. The remnants of the evening light shimmered against the stones, flickering like the wavering hopes of those around them. As the shadows deepened, silence fell upon the gathering, a collective inhalation of anticipation. The elder from Jericho, weary yet resolute, raised a trembling hand. To survive in the shadow of such calamity brings forth the weight of profound wisdom, he declared, capturing their attention. We are all shaped by our moments of despair, by our moments of reckoning. But, tell me, Joshua, what is to become of our knowledge? Shall we continue to perish under the weight of divine judgment, or shall we redeem each lesson as a stepping stone toward understanding? His words resonated like a distant drum, echoing through the veils of possibility. The Israelites exchanged glances, a collective contemplation sparking among them. This was not merely a victory, they stood on the precipice of transformation, an opportunity to redefine what it meant to bear the name of Israel. As Joshua contemplated the elders' words, he recalled Moses' teachings, the compassionate heart of God seeking reconciliation over retribution, healing over harm. We have a choice, Joshua finally spoke, a newfound determination replacing the shadows of doubt. We can lift our swords against those who remain, believing them to be enemies, or we can extend our hands to offer peace. We are called to reflect his character, to love and not just to conquer. A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the group as they began to visualize a new course, one not just enshrined in conquest, but one that walked the narrow path of faithfulness alongside love and justice. What would it mean to rebuild Jericho, not as a mere victory monument, but as a testament to redemption, despite the scars of its past? As the stars began to weave their tapestry across the night sky, casting pale light over the ruins, a question drifted into Joshua's mind, a question that stirred within others like embers sparked to life. What if our greatest victory lies not in erasing the past, but in restoring what has been broken? With hearts heavy yet curious, they stood together under the vastness of the heavens, yearning for wisdom and understanding. What awaited them in their choices? Would they boldly pursue the grace needed to encounter a new future, or turn back in fear, succumbing to the shadows of their own history? As the quiet beauty of the starlit sky enveloped the remnants of Jericho, whispers of uncertainty hung in the crisp air, vibrant with the promise of the unknown. Joshua felt the weight of the moment as he gazed at the people gathered around him, their faces illuminated by the gentle glow of celestial bodies, each one a witness to their struggle, their hope, and their resolve. We stand at a crossroads, Joshua spoke, his voice steady yet filled with the tremor of earnestness. In the heart of destruction lies an invitation to rebuild, but we must ask ourselves, what will this new Jericho look like? The question lingered, and though there were no immediate answers, the hearts present beat with a shared pulse of anticipation. Rahab, her presence steady and assured, stepped forward. We each carry tales of our ancestors, but perhaps we are called to create our own story, a story where the cycles of destruction do not define our future. Her eyes glimmered with a depth of understanding that transcended mere survival, hinting at the power found in collective memory and testimony. In the distance, the flickering of fires from the survivors' camp punctured the night's quiet. Sparks danced upwards towards the heavens, reminiscent of prayers sent forth, lingering on the edge of fate. This scene evoked a sense of divine presence, prompting Joshua to consider the deeper truths that often lay hidden beneath the surface of calamity. The elder raised his voice once again, drawing attention to the skies above. These stars, he remarked thoughtfully, hold stories of struggle, of nations that sought to turn from the path of righteousness. Are they not lost visions of what could have been? We must ask why the hand of the Almighty seemed so heavy upon them. Joshua nodded solemnly, remembering the accounts of the ancestors and the lessons woven into their narratives. There are mysteries we may never understand fully, but these moments of judgment compel us to reckon not just with God's fury, but with His purpose. Perhaps He seeks not our destruction but our willingness to reflect upon our choices to turn our hearts towards Him, our true refuge. Deborah stepped softly beside him, her gaze filled with conviction. If we are indeed crafted in His image, then surely part of our path is to embody the grace we yearn to receive. It is within the ashes of Jericho that we can find the seeds of compassion, to break the cycle of retaliation that has haunted our people. A ripple of agreement passed through the others, their resolve strengthening. They began to envision a Jericho rebuilt not just from material but from a foundation of empathy, forged in the crucible of hardship. The tales of those who had suffered would not be forgotten, rather, they would guide their hearts toward a more profound understanding of community and connection. Yet, in the shadows of hope and vision, fear lurked, an unspoken worry of repeating the past. What if they faltered in their resolve? What if the temptation to rise anew in violence overshadowed their dreams for peace? The questions hung heavy in the air as starlight flickered, mirroring the uncertainty within their souls. As Joshua's spirit soared with the possibilities, he surrendered his thoughts to the one who held time and destiny in his hands. Let us commit to remembering that every choice carries weight. We cannot overlook the significance of the lessons hidden in the ruins of the past. But even as we seek redemption, must we confront our impulse for vengeance? Can we really let go, choosing the path of healing over harm? And there, beneath the vast expanse of the unending night, the people of Jericho stood united yet divided by their thoughts, reflecting on these questions that would shape their future. Mere shadows of uncertainty faded into the brilliance of starlight, perhaps holding the answers they sought, waiting for them to reach forth and grasp the truth that lay just beyond their understanding. What a weighted theme as they chose between restoration and retribution remained a divine mystery enveloped in the shadows of their own history. In the quiet heart of the night, as the embers of the campfires began to die down, Joshua felt the stirrings of something profound. The air was thick with anticipation, and the multitude around him seemed to pulse with a collective heartbeat, each individual bound by a silent covenant of hope and fear. They stood on the brink of a new dawn, a moment where choices would carry the weight of generations. Yet, the shadows of their past loomed tumultuously, shrouding the promise before them. Have we considered, Joshua said, his voice leading them into deeper contemplation, that the destruction of nations serves as a stark reminder of the fragile dance between divine mercy and justice? In every fall, is there not a call for introspection amongst the living? His gaze swept across the faces illuminated by the campfire's flicker, seeking connection with their innermost fears. Rahab interjected gently, and in that introspection lies the potential for transformation. We must wonder what divine lessons emerge from the ruins of the past. Each fallen city carries echoes of warnings meant to guide us away from our own undoing. Yet, will we listen, or will we merely relive the mistakes of our ancestors? A deep silence settled, echoing the gravity of her words. They felt the weight of the history that surrounded them, the stories of those defeated not only by foes but by their own turning away from righteousness. It was as if the very bricks of ancient walls whispered tales of disobedience, crying out for repentance and renewal. Deborah thought aloud, we ought to perceive destruction not solely as an end but as a purification process. What if each trial we face is an opportunity to return to the path of righteousness? Might the ruins of the past ignite a burning desire for unity among us? Her eyes sparkled with earnest insight, sparking a glimmer of hope in those present. Murmurs of agreement spread like wildfire, yet within the cracks of enthusiasm lay an underlying apprehension. How could they genuinely chart a different course when the echoes of past sins lurked within their hearts? What if the temptation to conquer through violence clawed at their conscience and tainted their newfound vision of peace? Joshua could sense the tension and paused to reflect himself. We have witnessed how nations forget their roots, how their pride sets them on a collision course with the divine. What about us? Will we cling to the arrogance that closes our hearts? Or will we embrace humility, understanding that true strength lies in unity and compassion instead of domination? As the queries hung heavily in the air, a figure emerged from the shadows, an elderly man, a witness to the old Jericho before its ruin. He stepped forward with tremulous authority, embodying the weight of collective memory. I have seen too many who once flourished fall into despair. Their arrogance blindsided them when they forgot the cries of the oppressed. We must remember, in our desire to rebuild, there is a fine line between justice and vengeance. His words weighed heavily on the gathering, prompting a collective shiver as they grasped the complexity of their situation. Were they ready to wrestle with the realities of power dynamics, where the victor writes history, and the vanquished fade into obscurity? Would they be a people who rose above, or would they mire themselves in the very cycles they yearned to escape? As the night deepened, a stillness fell, broken only by the flicker of fire and the rustle of leaves. Humanity's fragile connection to the divine seemed to hang in the balance, as hope and dread swirled through their minds like smoke. In this moment of reflection, Joshua looked into the eyes of his people and posed a lingering question that would etch itself into their hearts. Will we be the architects of a new Jericho, where empathy reigns above conflict, or will we succumb to the patterns of old? As we stand shoulder to shoulder, can we truly choose to rise as a testament of forgiveness, or will the ruins of past sins plot our next steps? As they pondered the uncharted future before them, the night unfurled further into the unknown, hinting at the divine mysteries yet to be unveiled. As dawn crept silently over the horizon, hues of orange and gold spilled across the land, casting shadows that danced upon the ground, remnants of the night's solemn deliberations. Each whisper of wind seemed to carry with it the weight of the questions that lingered in the hearts of the men and women gathered around Joshua. The air, now warm with the promise of a new day, brimmed with uncertainty. Gathered around the embers, the collective spirit felt heavier than before. The resolve that had begun to swell in faces now kept its distance, entangled in the web of introspection. Joshua took a deep breath, sensing it was time to delve deeper into the very heart of their struggle, not only against external foes but also the shadows creeping within them. Perhaps our greatest adversary, he began, is not the sword we wield, but the thought that we are separate from one another and from the will of the divine. When nations rise against nations, are they not merely reflections of the inner turmoil? Each act of violence echoes through the ages, teaching a lesson that urges us toward illumination or, conversely, toward further darkness. He looked toward Rahab, whose path was once tangled in the very sins the people feared. Tell us, Rahab, what do your experiences teach you about the fragility of this separation? With a voice steady, she answered, I have learned that we cannot rebuild from ashes until we confront the rubble within our souls. The walls that I once lived behind were less about stone and mortar and more about the barriers of the heart. To tear down those walls, we must willingly face both our fragility and our strength. Deborah, emboldened by these revelations, added, in our desire for unity, we must reckon with what divides us. The false confidence that comes from ignoring the cries of the undone can blind us to the lessons etched in our shared humanity. What binds us is not perfection but the grace we extend in our imperfections. As her words resonated through the air, a quiet unease settled among the people. Each revelation dragged them deeper into the mire of their collective conscience, where they wrestled silently with the truth that redemption often required the shedding of beloved illusions. Could they face the unvarnished reality of their ancestors' mistakes and still emerge as a united force for good? Joshua, sensing the turmoil, guided them to look beyond their immediate fears. As we peer into the ancient texts of our forefathers, we find passages that speak of the divine's true intentions, the calls not merely for destruction, but repentance and renewal. Even as wrath fell upon nations, mercy remained a heartbeat away. We must ask ourselves, do we possess the courage to embrace the duality of these truths? It was as though a veil had been lifted. The people began to murmur among themselves, their voices weaving a tapestry of thoughts and fears. The honesty of their discourse unearthed a revelation that wove between the silence of the fire. They remembered stories of mercy hidden amid ruins, the promises made even when the shadows loomed darkest. Joshua paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle like morning dew. Are we ready to be a living testament of this truth? If we rebuild Jericho, what wisdom will we place at its gates? What stories will our children tell when they walk its streets? Will they remember compassion over conquest, or will they find within its walls the same divisions that haunt us now? As the day continued to unfold, the sun climbed higher, illuminating the faces of the people with warm golden rays. They remained haunted by the questions posed, yet driven by a flicker of hope. Voices began to rise in agreement, yet a tension remained, a longing for certainty amid their need for transformation. The wind whispered through the trees, drawing everyone closer to the deep spiritual mystery at play. If the past held lessons shaped by the divine hand, then what new truths awaited them on this threshold? In the stillness of the early sunlight, Joshua felt the weight of their contemplation merge with the rising warmth, reminding him of the tender balance between hope and despair. "Together, we stand on the precipice of choice," Joshua declared, his heart swelling with both trepidation and anticipation. Will we heed the call for unity that strives to awaken our better selves? Or will we allow the echoes of Jericho's past to bind us to cycles of fear and doubt? As the dawn fully broke, illuminating the landscape and revealing the true essence of their journey, a powerful question lingered in the air: will we rise not only to build a city but to forge a legacy of light, or remain ensnared in the darkness that has marred our path for far too long? As the sun ascended further, casting its radiant warmth across the gathering, the collective stillness was intertwined with a profound longing for understanding. The reflective atmosphere was thick with unspoken fears and hopes, as the echoes of Joshua's words reverberated in their minds. Joshua, sensing the urgency to delve deeper, shared a fable from their ancient texts, a story passed down through generations but often overshadowed by tales of conquest. In the days of old, there was a valley shrouded in fog, known to harbor both abundance and peril. The people of the valley worshipped many idols, their hearts divided. They sought prosperity yet continued to forsake the very covenant that tied them to the divine. It was said that the cries of the innocent rose like incense, reaching the heavens, until the heavens could no longer ignore them. From afar, a child's laughter pierced the tension, innocent and unblemished, a stark contrast to the grave reflections of the adults. In that moment, a realization swept through the crowd like a refreshing breeze. The duality of existence, joy intertwined with sorrow, certainty alongside doubt, was present in every life. Joshua continued, "The valley was visited by a prophet who spoke not of destruction for destruction's sake, but of yearning for a return to grace. He implored the people to turn their hearts, to release their false gods and embrace the one who had guided their ancestors through the wilderness." Zebulun, a farmer known for his keen insight, interrupted, "But what if the people chose to ignore him? What if they closed their ears to the truth simply because it challenged their comfort?" Across the gathering, faces reflected the flicker of doubt and recognition. The decision to change could indeed be a daunting task. Joshua turned his gaze towards the horizon, considering Zebulun's question. And therein lies the mystery of the divine's justice. It is not simply a matter of retribution, but of unyielding love, a love that desires transformation even in the face of rebellion. The valleys were laid waste, not as mere punishment, but as a grim yet necessary awakening, a chance to clear the fog obscuring the path to redemption. As these words settled into the hearts of the listeners, a shiver of understanding passed among them. They began to see their impending journey not merely as an endeavor to tear down walls, but as a sacred invitation to confront the fog that blinded them from their true purpose. Deborah chimed in, "We are called to deeper introspection, to approach our enemies, not with swords drawn but with hearts open. If we are to grasp the legacy of our ancestors, we must understand the nuances of their transgressions." As twilight approached, casting hues richer and deeper than earlier in the day, Rahab mused aloud, "But how do we know when we are genuinely changing? How do we measure our sincerity against the backdrop of our past? What assurance does the divine offer as we seek to walk in a different light?" Joshua considered the sincerity in her question, age-old yet ever relevant. Perhaps it lies in our willingness to grapple with the uncomfortable truths within us. When Gilead was struck with a plague, the elders realized their fasting and prayers had to emanate from a place of honesty, not masks of piety. If we confront our blindness with humility, our sacrifices will be worthier than offerings or burnt incense. With the sun descending behind the hills, casting long shadows that tangled and intertwined, the people faced the dawning reality of their shared journey, both the burdens they carried and the aspirations they nurtured. As darkness began to cloak them in mystery, Deborah spoke, her voice steady. "Together, we must ask ourselves, how do we embody the love that truly transforms us? Can we face our past without letting it dictate our future?" As they remained enveloped in contemplation, a profound silence settled over the congregation, infused with both trepidation and anticipation. They felt the weight of their shared inquiry ripple among them. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but with every breath, they were reminded of the divine invitation to step firmly into the unknown yet hopeful realm of change. In that moment of vulnerability, a question lingered: if we dare to confront our histories, stripping away the layers that bind us to fear, will we awaken to a legacy that reflects not the mistakes of yesterday, but the promise of tomorrow? The dusk deepened around them, and in that dim light, the flickering flames of their campfires illuminated more than just their surroundings, they echoed the flickers of understanding in their hearts. Joshua observed the faces of his people as they wrestled with their realizations. As we consider the fate of the valley and the choices that lay before us, he began, breaking the stillness, we must reflect not only on what we might lose but on what we might gain through the fire of consequence. Zebulun, whose brow was furrowed in thought, raised his voice again. But is it just the fire we should fear? Are there blessings hidden within destruction? Indeed, replied Joshua, his eyes glinting like the embers rapidly burning brighter. Destruction can birth new life. The land that lies barren offers fresh nutrients for crops yet to be sown. Just as the oak must drop its acorns, releasing them into the earth before new trees can take root, so too might our spirits need to be stripped of the past to embrace what lies ahead. Deborah leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. But how can we trust in this process when all we see are the remnants of what has been lost? How do we remain steadfast when the signs of abandonment are all around us? Trust, replied Joshua, is often tested in silence and uncertainty. The divine whispers in moments of loss, nudging us towards hope, encouraging us to seek beauty in the ashes. Think of the ancient tale of the phoenix, it arises only after being consumed by flames. We are drawn towards resurrection not merely by desires but through the deep understanding of cycles of endings and beginnings. Rahab's voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but what if we do not see the phoenix? What if the ashes linger, clouding our vision and stifling our aspiration for redemption? In that darkness, Joshua said, his tone gentle yet firm, it is within our hands to ignite the light of compassion. We each hold embers of kindness, which, when kindled, can illuminate paths often obscured by despair. It is not solely about being ready for what is to emerge, but about allowing ourselves to grow amidst uncertainty. As the stars twinkled above them like scattered seeds of hope, the community felt a shift within. They were reminded that they were not alone in this struggle for understanding. Each had their burdens and reactions to the lurking shadows of their collective pasts, yet they could cultivate strength in their shared journey. Zebulun added, then perhaps we are to be both guardians and gardeners, tending to the wounds of our shared history while also planting seeds for our future. Joshua smiled, moved by the unity they were beginning to forge. Yes, it is mutual care that binds us. And through it, we remind each other of our covenant not just with the divine, but with one another. The destruction of the valley in the fable does not exist without the potential for rebirth, as our own trials do not define us but can lead us toward a more profound understanding of grace. The air thickened with the depth of their shared reflection. Each person was wrapped in the warmth of their collective undertaking, yet an echoes of uncertainty continued to swirl in the peripheries of their minds. Joshua, Rahab ventured, her brow creased with thought, what if standing here together, sharing our reflections, does not lead to change? What if our hearts remain heavy and our feet stagnant? Then what? Joshua gazed into the night sky, considering the unresolved narrative before him. The divine often works in enigmatic ways, it asks of us commitment within the ambiguity. In our sincerity, perhaps even our silence holds the key to our awakening. We must exercise faith, not merely in the observable fruit of our actions but in the blooms that lie dormant beneath the surface. As the night deepened and the fires began to flicker low, the people pondered on the thread between their past and future, seeking out the strength of resolve. Together, they recognized the importance of their collective journey amidst uncertainty and unrest. A lingering wonder swept through them as they silently wrestled with these profound truths. If embracing the ambiguity of our shared path is the doorway to transformation, will we have the courage to walk through, even when the other side remains shrouded in mystery? As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, the people stirred in their makeshift camps. The crisp air was filled with a sense of anticipation, mingled with the remnants of doubt that yet lingered. Joshua rose early, seeking solitude at the edge of the valley. The scene before him stirred a deep yearning for clarity as he gazed at the land that lay sprawled beneath him both desolate and fertile. You have entrusted me with leading these people, he murmured to the winds. but I feel a weight of uncertainty pressing upon my heart. Are we to traverse this land marked by destruction, or is it merely a court of souls searching for redemption? In that moment, an unusual stillness enveloped the valley, and he sensed an unseen presence weaving through the air, bringing with it whispers of the ancients. Joshua closed his eyes, allowing the cool breeze to wash over him, inviting him to listen with more than his ears but with the depth of his spirit. The night's reflections flickered in his mind, echoing Rahab's questions about the lingering heaviness and the daunting weight of inertia. If destruction could indeed birth new life, why did the very thought of it feel like a shroud over the hearts of his people? Were there reasons deeply enshrined in the chaos that could illuminate their path forward? Meanwhile, the others began to gather, sharing half-formed thoughts and lingering questions as they filed to join him. Deborah, her eyes glistening with the light of discovery, approached Joshua, and without preamble, she stated, "The valleys we fear may not be just markers of loss but also gifts of clarity. Might this destruction be a call to awaken our dormant spirits and call forth courage within us?" Joshua nodded, his heart bolstered by her insight. "You speak wisely, Deborah. Yet, how can we reconcile our understanding of the divine, who sometimes allows calamity to reign? What if these trials are not merely tests but rather lessons concealed within shadows?" As others joined their circle, Zebulun offered, "Perhaps these nations fallen into ruin were once vibrant with promise, yet their hearts turned away from the very essence of life, the bond with the Creator and each other. What if, within their downfall, there lie warnings for us? A call to safeguard our covenant." The weight of Zebulun's words settled over them like a heavy cloak. In this realization, their fear began to swirl into contemplation rather than despair. Rahab stepped closer, her voice steadying. "But what about the innocent lives buried beneath the rubble of such great destruction? Did they too wander further into the darkness? Can we feel compassion for those we have never known, and how does their fate illuminate our own?" The complexity of such thoughts deepened their collective silence. Compassion for the lost merged with the need for self-preservation, forging a pathway to self-examination. Joshua felt an urging within him, a growing sense of the depths they must explore together. As the sun rises anew, illuminating our path, we must embrace all aspects of this truth, the blessings, the burdens, and the callings of the past. Our journey cannot shy away from pain, for in it may lie our greatest wisdom. Just then, a collective shudder ran through the assembly as they sensed a larger purpose ever shaping their destiny. As if guided by an invisible hand, they began to share stories, personal struggles entwined with the history of their ancestors, revealing the intricate and often painful tapestry of their shared identity. Each tale was woven with fragments of sorrow, joy, and fleeting connections that shaped who they were. A crackling fire ignited nearby, serving as a reminder that life pulsated unceasingly, even amidst ashes. As they shared, Joshua's heart began to unfurl with the realization that they were all on a precipice teetering between despair and divine possibility. He looked upon them with newfound clarity. Could it be that the understanding we seek within these mysteries doesn't reside in seeking answers, but rather in deepening our connection to one another? With this awareness hanging in the air, Joshua posed a reverberating question that hung, heavy yet hopeful, between them. In our search for deeper wisdom amid the anguished echoes of the past, are we prepared to redefine our strength as the journey toward understanding unfolds before us, each step a testament to our unity amidst obscurity? In the final hours of twilight, the people of Israel stood together amidst the ruins of Jericho, their hearts swelling with a mix of trepidation and hope. The shadows of their past loomed large, yet within the darkness lay the shimmering promise of transformation. Joshua gathered them closer, aware of the delicate threads binding their shared destiny. It was a moment poised between yesterday's burdens and tomorrow's birth, a threshold brimming with possibility. "Beloved," he began, his voice steady and resonant, "we stand here not merely as conquerors, but as witnesses to a greater truth unfolding before us. Our journey has taken us through the wreckage of Jericho, yet beneath the rubble lies the heartbeat of a new beginning. As the collective breath of his people coursed through the air, the profound weight of this moment pressed upon their souls. The echo of fallen walls resonated within their hearts, bold reminders of pride unbridled, loss unmeasured, and lives extinguished. Yet there, amid those remnants, there flickered a flame of renewal, urging them toward a reckoning that transcended the physical boundaries of their conquest. Each of you, he implored, looking deep into their eyes, carries within you the stories embedded in this moment, the stories of our ancestors, the tales of past mistakes begging for redemption. What will you define as our legacy? Will it be a marker of destruction or a beacon of hope that reaches far beyond the horizon? Rahab stepped forward, her spirit aflame with the urgency of their gathering. We have witnessed both the power and the fragility of life, the inexplicable intertwining of mercy and judgment. In the shadows of this city, we find ourselves at a crossroads, not just of land, but of hearts. What truths can we distill from this crucible of despair, to cultivate a future where both justice and compassion reign? Silence engulfed the assembly, each member immersed in contemplation. The weight each carried now felt intertwined, a shared burden blossoming into something palpable and alive. Within this unspoken camaraderie, they began to feel the pulse of change expanding among them. It is the pulse of understanding, Deborah interjected, her voice imbued with wisdom. As we stand on the ashes of Jericho, we must acknowledge that destruction does not hold dominion over our path forward. Instead, we are invited to listen to the testimonies buried within these ruins, a call to rise anew, not just as victors, but as stewards of mercy and peace. A wave of agreement rippled through the crowd, igniting sparks of hope. Each understanding hand stretched forth, seeking hands that echoed not just conquest, but compassion, a shared desire for a purpose that merged individual stories into a tapestry of collective resilience. Each heartbeat carried unuttered confessions, the fears, the hopes, and the yearning to forge a future not shackled by past mistakes. In a shared moment of vulnerability, they turned their collective gaze upon Joshua, who held within him the tether of their destiny. Together, Joshua urged, a newfound fervor coursing through him, we can choose the path of restoration. Let Jericho be a testament to our awakening. We do not erase the sins of our forebears, but we transform their echoes into lessons of compassion. Every fragment of loss is an opportunity for healing. Will we extend our hands to one another, to lift the fallen, or will we tread upon ashes, bound to a cycle of vengeance long past? As he spoke, an unexpected stillness enveloped them, a sacred hush that beckoned the divine presence into their midst. The air thickened with a promise, a realization that they were not simply standing at the brink of history but weaving the story of their legacy anew. One voice rose among the many, a voice from the remnants of Jericho, soft yet resolute. An elder, who had witnessed the rise and fall of the city, broke the silence. When we embrace each other amidst struggle, we transform fear into grace. Let us not be defined by the calamity of our past but rather by the love that draws us toward each other in unity. Perhaps it is time we become the architects of a world shaped more by understanding than by swords. A collective heartbeat surged through the assembly, affirmations echoing like ripples in a still pond. They came to understand destruction was but one chapter in this profound story, for they were but the authors of their own destinies. As the sun dipped low, casting gold and crimson across the landscape, Joshua raised his arms to the heavens, a signal of commitment to the almighty force that guided them, reminding them of an ancient truth whispered through time. Our greatest battles are not those fought against others but those fought within ourselves. The choice lies in surrendering to the wisdom that intertwines love with justice. In our journey to rebuild, let us illuminate the path forward with kindness. Every act, every thought, becomes a seed planted in fertile ground. They stood together, united in resolve. The walls of Jericho may have crumbled, but in their hearts, they began constructing a new foundation of purpose, a city born not merely of conquest but of healing, a legacy of transformation. As the final light faded on the horizon, each person within this assembly, every heart stitched into this tale, knew that they were weaving a narrative that would echo through the ages. They had come face to face with destruction but chose renewal. They had absorbed the lessons inked in scars, and embraced the future with open arms. In the quiet moment that followed, Joshua's voice soared above them, a rallying cry that pierced the night. Let our story be this, that despite destruction, we shall arise, bound not by fear, but transformed by love. Tomorrow and every day thereafter shall stand as testament to our commitment to walk a path not just of creating lives but cultivating legacies of light against the backdrop of darkness. As dawn broke forth yet again, illuminating the dust of old with the promise of new beginnings. The people of Jericho knew they had become part of something infinitely larger than themselves, a journey of faith, a story of hope, intertwining their lives with the divine narrative echoed throughout history. They were ready to move forward, ready to embrace the legacy they would leave, a legacy not of Jericho's demise but a new sound echoing through time, vibrant and resounding, whispering the truth that love had the power to restore even the most shattered of foundations.